Imperium. Out of every faction fighting for survival, the Imperium of Man is a powerhouse that controls 1,000,000 worlds and commands an elite military force in the known galaxy. Within this vast empire, the Adeptus Mechanicus treats technology as a religion, performing sacred rituals on machines whose original functions have been forgotten for ages. Instead of innovating, they focus on reverse engineering ancient relics, turning the most brilliant engineers in human history into mere maintenance workers. The Administratum, on the other hand, oversees the daily lives of Imperial citizens, operating on timelines so slow that a simple request might take a century to reach the right desk. Entire planetary systems have been lost because of bureaucratic blunders. By the time a distress signal finally reaches Terra and a fleet is sent out, the war has often been over for generations. On the battlefield, Space Marines are the Imperium's finest weapon and its most fragile resource. Each chapter fields roughly 1,000 warriors, each one taking decades to produce. At this point, I'm gonna let you do the math. But the ultimate weakness sits on a golden throne, the machine keeping the Emperor alive. It came from an age humanity can no longer replicate and is failing in ways no tech priest can fix. It keeps the Astronomicon working, the psychic beacon that makes interstellar travel possible across the entire Imperium. The problem is, it's a ticking time bomb, and the Mechanicum traded billions of human slaves to the Dark Eldar just to buy a few more centuries. Long before these events, at the height of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor summoned the Primarch Vulcan and gave him a secret order. Following his father's command, Vulcan installed the Talisman of 7 Hammers beneath the throne, a dead man's switch that would destroy Terra itself the moment the machine failed. The Emperor's order was clear as rain. If the Golden Throne falls and he dies, chaos must not be allowed to seize humanity's homeworld. Better to burn it all down than hand it to the ruinous powers. Chaos. Even if they are the most powerful force in the 40k galaxy, Chaos is the least capable of achieving ultimate victory because the Chaos gods hate each other almost as much as they hate everything else. The 4 major gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, play what's called the Great Game, their eternal struggle for dominance against one another. This takes priority over any unified campaign against the Imperium or any other faction. Whenever one god seems poised to gain an edge, the other 3 often band together to pull them back down. Their mortal followers mirror this chaotic dynamic perfectly. Chaos Space Marine warbands are just as likely to clash with each other as they are to battle loyalists, and the only times Chaos achieves anything close to unified action is when a figure like Abaddon the Despoiler manages to enforce some level of cooperation. But even his Black Crusades tend to splinter under the weight of conflicting agendas. The gods are also structurally incapable of winning because they draw their power from the emotions of living creatures, and every mortal civilization destroyed would drain the very emotional energy that fuels them. In fact, such a grim victory could very well obliterate all of reality in its aftermath. On a tactical level, a Chaos champion lives in a state of permanent, high-stakes paranoia. Their patrons are cosmic gamblers who get bored easily. A champion who simply fails to please their patron at a critical moment risks being transformed into a mindless Chaos spawn. In an instant, a tactical genius is reduced to a mindless, screaming mass of meat and eyes. In the warp, the greatest triumph and the ultimate crisis are often the exact same thing. Necrons. Millions of years ago, the Necrons made a critical choice to trade their organic bodies for immortal mechanical shells through biotransference. However, they soon discovered that this immortality came with an unexpected cost. Massive biofurnaces consumed an entire species, stripping each Necron tier of their flesh and soul while the star gods feasted on the spiritual energy. What emerged from this process were machines of incredible power, yet they became soulless. Only the highest-ranking nobles managed to retain enough cognitive complexity to maintain their personality and free will. The rest became mindless automatons, bound to follow orders and completely numb to any experience. The situation turned catastrophic during the 60-million-year Great Sleep. Many tomb worlds broke down, and ancient viruses ate through memory banks, while radiation storms wiped away minds. Many who were supposed to wake up as rulers came back as mindless robots instead, with no idea who they used to be. The Necrons are haunted by 2 psychological corruptions of their species that made matters even worse. The Flayer virus is a madness-inducing plague that drives Necrons to crave the organic flesh they no longer have, turning them into frenzied predators. The Destroyer cults are on the other side of this madness, where Necrons have looked into the void of their own immortality and decided that the only cure for existence is exterminating all life, including their own kind. Perhaps the most crushing weakness is that they cannot reproduce. They are a species on a countdown in spite of their hyper-advanced technology. Tyranids. These creatures function as a single organism spread across billions of bodies, and that unified intelligence is also their weakness. The Tyranid hive mind is a masterpiece of biological coordination where every creature is a cell in a galactic predator, directed by synapse nodes like hive tyrants and warriors. This creates a lethal off switch. If these psychic connections are cut, the swarm's impressive unity fails. Without a leader, the galaxy's most efficient hunters turn into mindless beasts, attacking each other as the hive mind's signal fades away. Another one of their obvious flaw is that hive fleets are like sharks that must keep moving, and they're always in a state of metabolic emergency. If a fleet gets stuck in a dead area with no biomass to feast on, it starts to consume itself just to stay alive. It's a machine that needs constant fuel to avoid total self-cannibalism. Aeldari. They were once the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever produced, then they destroyed themselves, and their greatest weakness is that they still think they are the only ones who can fix it. The Aeldari caused their own downfall through centuries of greed and cruelty. This constant darkness flowed into the warp until it finally exploded, giving birth to Slaanesh and destroying their empire in an instant. Their gods were devoured and their empire was gone. What remained were scattered survivors clinging to craft-world ships and hidden webway enclaves. Every Aeldari who dies now has their soul consumed by Slaanesh unless it is captured in a spirit stone and stored in a craft world's infinity circuit before death. If that stone is broken, the consciousness inside is deleted permanently. Yet their old pride is their biggest mistake. They follow the vague visions of their leaders and use other races like tools in a game. These plans often fail, starting wars that kill the very Aeldari they were trying to save. Drukhari. They are arguably the most technologically and tactically advanced branch of the Aeldari. When Slaanesh was born, those Aeldari hidden inside the Webway's city of Kamara survived the initial apocalypse. The Drukhari retreated into the Webway, doubling down on the very excesses that birthed a god. Their greatest weakness is a soul bleed that turns every moment of their existence into a countdown. The Chaos God they helped birth now owns their souls from the moment of their birth. Slaanesh drains every living Drukhari continuously, an invisible hemorrhage that never stops. The only way to slow this drain is to feed it suffering and terror. The psychic residue of other beings in agony temporarily replenishes what Slaanesh takes. Without the Drukhari raids, their souls would simply waste away. They are basically vampires of pain because their bodies and spirits actually need it to survive. They will slowly die without enough agony to feed the hole in their soul. Genestealer Cults. It starts with a single gene stealer infecting a host, then the infection rewires the victim's brain for absolute loyalty and alters their biology so their children carry that Tyranid genetic material. Those children infect more people, and their children do the same. Over the years, the Genestealer cult weaves itself into every part of society, from factories to military forces to government offices, all while quietly setting the stage for an explosive uprising. Everything hinges on staying under the radar long enough to build up enough strength. If caught too soon, the cult doesn't have a traditional army to rely on, and getting discovered before the uprising is a death sentence for the entire dynasty. The uprising exists to generate a psychic beacon powerful enough to guide a Tyranid hive fleet to the planet. When the fleet arrives, it strips the world of every gram of biomass, including the cult, every hybrid who spent their life building toward this moment. Leagues of Votann. After being cut off for thousands of years, the Leagues of Votann have finally re-emerged from the galactic core. This powerful interstellar confederation is made up of the Kin, a clone hybrid race that has managed to survive in the most unforgiving environments. Their civilization is entirely dependent on the Votann, an ancient supercomputer. From weapon specifications and military strategies to genealogical records, it contains the memories of every kin who has ever lived, all uploaded at the moment of their death. However, centuries of data from an ever-growing population have been crammed into machines that were never meant to handle such crazy volume. What used to be quick answers now takes decades to retrieve. Some Votann have even started to show erratic behaviors, their responses becoming unpredictable under the immense burden. The Kin have attempted various solutions, yet nothing seems to work. The Tau. The Tau stand out as the most optimistic faction in the galaxy, but their biggest weakness is a metaphysical blind spot. They are functionally blind to the supernatural forces that define every other civilization. While nearly every spacefaring species relies on the warp for faster-than-light travel, the Tau are left out in the cold. They possess almost no psychic presence in the Imperium. To a demon, a Tau soul is just a faint flicker, while a human soul blazes like a torch. They don't have navigators, astropaths, or any kind of psychers for warp jumps. This limitation keeps their empire small, as traveling anywhere can take years. The Tau once tried to travel faster with experimental engines, but accidentally tore a hole in the warp. Since they did not understand magic or demons, most of their fleet was destroyed by monsters they could not even name. Orks. They are the most common species in the galaxy because they are actually a form of fungus. They constantly drop invisible spores from their bodies, especially when they fight or die, and have been at war since long before humans. The funny thing is, they have never actually come close to winning if you ask a non-orc. In the Orc society, the biggest and most violent orc is the boss. This works for a small group, but it means millions of warriors across many planets depend on just one leader staying alive. When a war boss dies and no one takes his place, the tribes don't stay together. They immediately start fighting each other to see who is the new boss. Beyond following a leader, orcs have no long-term plans. Big wars that took years to build can fall apart in hours. This is why the Imperium tries to kill key war bosses early before the crowd gets too big to handle. Their guns work only because Orks believe they will, and their shared psychic energy changes reality to match what they expect. Many of their tools simply stop working if anyone else picks them up. This means their power depends entirely on how they feel. Orks cannot handle peace and need war to survive. Without an enemy to fight, they instinctively fight each other just for fun. Because of this, they rarely keep the land they take. They care more about the joy of the fight than the hard work of ruling. Thank you for watching this deep dive on the greatest weakness of every faction in 40k. Click here to enjoy another video and see you in the next one.